Hey guys! So, it is never cold here. The temperature in the winter is never below 63 degrees Fahrenheit, and the average summer temperature is 90. The Republic of Maldives, a heaven on earth that is usually just called Maldives, is located south of India and Sri Lanka in the Indian Ocean. The country is made up of a chain of almost 1,200 coral islands grouped into atolls. These magnificent islands have snow-white, sandy, endless beaches. It's the largest coral island country in the world, with an area of 120 square miles and a length of 466 miles. That was home to over 540,000 tourists on 200 inhabited islands in 2021. Today, when melting glaciers are leading to rising water levels, both cities and entire countries are threatened. A target of catastrophe is the Maldives, that are located just 3 feet above sea level, and locals are receiving warning about floods more frequently. The islands sink more and more every year, and they could be completely gone by the end of the century. And while the rich and celebrities spend tons of cash at the local resorts and enjoy their carefree vacation, the locals fight droughts and try to gather just a little fresh water. So most of the island population lives in villages and works as fishers and farmers, who even gather coconuts. Now, most people consider the Maldives a paradise-like place with a fabulous environment. However, these ideas don't always match reality. Since the Maldives live off of tourism to a great extent, an industry that began actively growing here in the 1970s, some of the islands are equipped with first-class hotels, and the profits from the tourism industry today makes up about 28% of the country's GDP. The islands offer tourists first-class service with elite hotels, including the most famous hotel brands, that service about 1.5 million tourists every year. Now, a trip to these islands isn't one you'd call cheap. A night on the islands for two could cost over $3,000, and the cost of a week-long stay could reach the tens of thousands. Now, until 2009, only rich tourists went to the Maldives, who took a boat or hydroplane from the airport to the island hotels where they lived in paradise. Private tourism industry on the islands where the locals live was forbidden, and they couldn't even sell souvenirs. Tourists paid hotels tons of money, and the locals received almost none of what the tourists came to their islands from all over the world to pay for. Life of the islanders was extremely poor and began gradually changing after liberal democratic reforms that gave the locals the opportunity to have their own businesses. Now, since 2010, the country has received foreign investors, and the locals began building guest houses, inexpensive hotels, and invite tourists to stay. Now, most of the profits remain in the Maldives, letting them accelerate the development of the quality of life on the islands and make it more comfortable. It's no surprise that the capital is covered in construction waste. The people got money and are remodeling their homes or building new ones. Today, even tourists with an average income can afford to visit the gorgeous islands. But will our grandchildren and great-grandchildren be able to see the beaches of Vadhu or the legendary Bounty Island with their own eyes, and not just look at a picture? Well, 11 years ago, a UN committee came to a verdict. If the sea level will rise like it is now, then by 2090, the Maldives will have completely ceased to exist, since the Maldives are the lowest country in the world, and their highest point is just 8 feet above sea level. The problem is worsening every year, and currently, 80% of the islands are just 3.2 feet above sea level. Now, experts suppose that by 2100, the sea level will have raised 3.6 feet, and the Maldives will have sunk. The country already has encountered natural disasters. 90% of the country has been subject to flooding, and 97% of the coastline has eroded, sometimes due to human cause. More and more ports appear on the island every year, which causes the soil to degrade. The situation is worsened by the country being split into 2 zones with opposing problems. So the northern part is in a drought, and the south is fighting floods. Additionally, the Maldivians don't have normal drinking water. Until the 1990s, the locals got their water from underground. However, in recent years, the groundwater is getting saltier. The 2004 tsunami made matters worse. Water swept through the outer atolls, destroying some of the infrastructure, including water and electric systems, and the airport. Natural disasters damaged an important natural site, the coral reefs that serve as a natural barrier to flooding. To satisfy the needs of the population, desalinated water is used, and the agricultural regions gather rainwater in cisterns during the rainy season, with a bottle of water costing $1.50 in shops. The population is highly dependent on the continuous desalinating work. A fire in a large desalination plant in the capital in 2014 led to 130,000 cities experiencing an acute lack of drinking water and a need for aid from continental countries to deliver bottles of water to the Maldives. While the Maldives are gradually sinking, the government is looking at various options of the developing situation and is trying to think of how to adapt to the changing environment up to and including fully relocating all of their citizens to the continent in the future. The locals are extremely invested in saving the land where they live, that is disappearing little by little every year. So currently, there are several plans on how to fight the rising water level and storm tides. The first is building a wall, dam, or barrier to regulate the water flow. Now, this method is used in some places, but the conditions in the Maldives would likely lead to a failure. The second approach is to bolster the beaches with sand from the ocean floor through so-called dredging works. This method is used in some areas too, but it harms the sea life, is very energy-consuming, and has to be done forever. Meanwhile, the ocean is rising 3.2 millimeters per year and is rising quicker over time. American scientists from MIT spent several years developing the growing islands technology to form new systems of underwater structures that use the energy of the waves to gather sand in strategically important places. Thus, they could create small, artificial, self-restoring barrier islands or narrow sandbars. Thousands of experiments were conducted in a wave pool over the last few years. They were successful and showed that sandbars could be formed in a matter of days. Now in 2019, deployment of underwater devices began in the Maldives that would independently of their geometry and orientation create artificial sandbars. Now over a year, scientists used physical surveying, drones, and satellites to monitor the growth of the underwater construction, 3 by 2 by 2 meters or 9 by 6 by 6 feet, and installed 2 more devices. Now just imagine a specially shaped bag made of durable cotton material, filled with sand, and submerged in the necessary place, and the rest of the work is done by the waves. If the technology gathers enough speed, then the dredging works that use tons of energy, time, money, and labor, and that lead to destroying the natural sea environment could probably be stopped. Sandbars are formed in nature naturally, and therefore artificial ones can also be formed artificially. It's unbelievable that a sandbar 330 feet long, 66 feet wide, and just over 3 feet tall is made completely independently in just a few months through interactions between the waves and seafloor topography. While experts are obtaining information on how to install the devices more effectively at a larger scale, dozens of islands are already completely hidden from the waves. Now, the islanders are looking out for another danger besides the flooding that threatens their lives itself because of the extreme sensitivity of the coral reefs to the water's warming. When the ocean becomes too warm in heat waves, the corals lose their red symbiotic microalgae, become white, and die off. In 2016, over 60% of the Maldives coral lost its color because of another heat wave, when waters in the Indian Ocean warmed up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. You can't help the whitened coral, so the islands are constantly planting new coral, drawing tourists into the process too. Private companies and research centers, both local and foreign, take part in this careful practice. The ring of reefs feeds the people with fish, protects their islands from storms, and used to even serve as a source of construction material for their homes. The Maldivians are trying to save their forest from erosion, like we save ours from fires. Well, that's all for today. Be sure to leave a like, comment, let me know, would you like to go visit the Maldives or maybe live there? Who knows? And we'll see you again next time.